Good afternoon, everyone. It's very wonderful having all of you and being part of this program. My topic for today's webinar is role of media as a key stakeholder in building resilient communities. So I would like to start off with Ms. Sonia Rennies Taylor, spoken very aptly that we will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal other than we normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate and lack. We should not long to return, my friends. We are being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature. So these were her words, very beautiful and very poignant to the situation that we are currently in. So if you look at the coronavirus disease, it has produced a very global health crisis that has had a very deep impact on the way we have perceived our world and everyday lives. And I really liked what Sir told was that home has become the new place for everyone where, we are managing multiple works and all that. And the infection has claimed the life of more than 26,273 people in India as of today's statistics in the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare website that we just looked into. However, for a populous and socially, ethnically diverse subcontinent, there is much more beyond than these statistics. And if you look at the long-lasting psychosocial impact, we see there's already, like Dr. Naveen was pointing out, there's a lot of economic fallout, mass hysteria, and constrained public health resources, and misinformation, which is very large. Apart from the fatality rates, people are also grappling with many of these issues. And within this context of physical threat, social and physical distancing, the role of different mass media channels in the lives on individual, social, and at the society levels cannot be underestimated. And if you see, there's a very urgent need to create a resilient and literate community globally in health communication, and media should lead the way. And the integration of media in any health literacy program content is very important at this particular time. And various steps have been taken by the Government of India to start awareness campaigns, prevent misinformation, and promote authenticity on the outbreak by initiating various advisories. And to inform the public during these uncertain times, we have seen that the newsrooms across the countries have made pandemic coverage a priority, as already told by many of our previous speakers. But the ever-changing and sometimes unverified nature of COVID-19 data being released has left journalists with a lot of challenges when it comes to providing very accurate information to the public. And the intensity of the interest in the story and the consequences of the way the story is being presented are really kind of very massive. Like all of us have been discussing, it can make or even break communities also. And how does it all work? If you look at the psychology behind this, if you see due to the lockdown, we have seen that there's a surge in viewership on media platforms for COVID-19 related information, but what is actually consumed is far from factual and does not actually generate a very rational discourse. And maybe the best thing that has happened across the variety of media platforms is the number of celebrities speaking and urging people to strictly follow the government's lockdown. And this has been very classically described by Bandura, if you see in his social cognitive learning theory, or what otherwise some of them have summarized as entertainment education as a method of behavior change based on modeling. So however, people use media not only for information but also to propagate the circulated fake news. So what do we understand by resilient communities when we are asking media to actually build on working communities which are very resilient? So the original notion of resilience from the Latin word resilio means to jump back or bounce back. So we want the communities to actually be resilient and be able to bounce back from the adversities that they are facing. And community resilience has been very beautifully defined as a sustained ability of a community to withstand and recover from adversity. So it can be economic, it can be stress, it can be pandemic, it can be man-made or any natural disasters. And every disaster is unique. So it would be a mistake to prepare for identical future pandemics. We need to identify general principles that can help communities respond effectively to diverse risks that they face. And actions that can build upon community resilience could be that as a media, that we lead the change and have a very coordinated effect with various key stakeholders. And we also understand the risks of communicating with and educating people about those risks, partnering with those who can actually affect change in the community, and empowering individuals and communities to exercise choice and take responsibilities and reduce the risks in those built environments and support capabilities for disaster resilience. And why is understanding false news or rumors very important during the COVID-19 crisis? So all of us know that rumors spread across boundaries, across states, across countries. And there is too much of complex information for people to actually synthesize accurately. Or there is trust or lack of it leading to serious consequences. So when there is some kind of a rumor floating, you don't know whether you need to trust it, or and sometimes because of certain fear, we ending up trusting that, and the rumor just spreads across. And when do they gain more popularity is when they're the only source of information for the person. For example, a person who is having only TV is actually glued to that, and any rumor that is being spread on in the TV becomes his primary source of information. And it also can be because they attach to existing held beliefs by the person. So if a person has some pre-existing notion about a particular community, he will actually hold on to that belief when there is a rumor that spreads across. And they have some iota of truth also. For example, there is some this one about a vaccine is being developed or something like that. So then they start to actually believe more of it, that okay, it is going to work, it is going to make me better. And when conditions are distressing for the person, when this person starts becoming quite panicky, or he starts having strong has an emotional reaction for that. And when there is a motivation to accept the rumor. So when someone tells that, okay, there is going to be some kind of a vaccine that is going to come, it might be some time that before it might even come, and vaccines, when they come, they need to be evaluated. They need to be actually, it takes time because it is across countries that it needs to be tested and all also. And then they have flamed, and when rumors spread also, when they have flamed existing prejudice, that is, there are some vulnerable people from populations, when there are people from certain countries where there is already some prejudice that is already existing. And there are now new prejudice which actually, because of the virus, we have seen that there's a lot of stigma and discrimination for the doctors, the healthcare workers, the patients and the family, and even media professionals themselves are facing certain prejudice because of the rumors that are spreading. So what could be the role of mass media houses as they have become the primary source of information for the people, and how can they help in building resilience in the communities? This is a big question. So fighting false news and information, the first one is, that is highlighting and debunking rumors by providing relevant data to the community. So it's very important that as media that we play the right role, that we minimize the rumors that are floating and provide accurate information, and prevent information overload and content relating to xenophobia, that is targeting countries or region, stigma and prejudice. And it's very crucial that we understand the audience that we are actually tailoring our news reports on. That so for example, if it is something about a child that we are reporting on, what could be the effect that children who are listening to the news can have, how anxious we can be, because we have been seeing a lot of parents reporting about how children are petrified when they are listening to certain news that are coming about, and how children are asking them questions which are beyond their age, and the fear that is set in that my parents might not be there, what could happen to me, and what are the cultural backgrounds about the various people that we need to keep in mind when we are tailoring the messages. And understanding and communicating uncertainty clearly is very important, that as a media professional, that if we are not sure about some information, how do we communicate that? That do we tell that the information is available is more effective than speculating or making claims, that we feel that okay, do we really rush about going and communicating, or do we wait till we get some authentic information? And not over or under reassuring, but simply laying out the risk and potential consequences with the appropriate tone. And it's very important to provide numbers, context, history and changes to procedure in a timely and straightforward manner. So if like someone was already telling that, instead of repeatedly talking about the numbers, we see sometimes every day in the evening we see news channels where lot of news is being reported about how many numbers are being, in a country or in a state, how many people are dying. Do we need to, how often do we need to repeat these messages is very important. And can we use this pandemic actually to improve the society in addressing prejudice, inequalities that the community is facing? And it's also important that telling people what they can do and how they can act to keep themselves and others safe is very crucial from a media perspective. And people are already experiencing the crisis. So should we actually sugarcoat the current situation and give out so much of excess information? And we can also integrate data from search engines like Google, QHub and others to actually understand and study the trends of misinformation that is floating in the communities. That's why we tell that balance should be very integral when reporting health and science in all media agencies, particularly in situations that has compromised the public health. So what can you tell people to do so that they're not just recipients of information? Can they be an active participation in this process? This is the thing that we as mental health professionals and media also should look into that. So the other thing is the resources for psychological preparedness. So it's also very important to liaise with public health platforms, as already told by my previous resource people, to update statistics, accurate information and trends of ongoing infections, integrating essential service location and contact tracing using special applications, networking with mental health institutes and liaising to report services for counseling, training, mental health crisis intervention and suicide prevention, and build relationship with researchers who have a history of reliable and scientifically rigorous work, and build a stable of experts to maintain accurate reporting. And it's also important to provide effective health communication, especially related to prevention measures and how we can curtail misinformation. And also collaborating with key influential people in the society would be very helpful, who may have a positive impact on the community by directly interacting to allay their fears and anxieties. So, Dr. Naveen has already spoken about stigma, but I'm just going to briefly touch upon it, that as a media, that building stigma is incredibly bad for any outbreak control. It can drive individuals to hide illness in order to avoid discrimination. It can prevent people seeking healthcare, and it can also discourage people from seeking health behaviors, all of which actually helps in the virus spreading faster. So if we see that, we need to, how media can play a very vital role is to also connect and organize community campaigns to minimize stigma by bringing in credible experts and taking a lead role. And there are plenty of information education materials that are already present, activities that one can actually and see that how it can reach the communities. And socio-culturally and linguistically sensitive infographics, jargons and media appropriate words and phrases needs to be used whenever there is a reporting of the infections on the TV, in the TV channels, and showing empathy with those affected and carefully explaining terminologies. For example, what does a community case means? And words like, we have been, I think, witness to many TV channels using words like killer corona, deadly virus, super spreaders. And yesterday, one of my other faculty was saying that one of the local channels was also calling as Vishakanya virus. Why the Kanya came in the picture, she was asking, making it very gender. In media jargon, in newspaper and local TV channels are actually a very frightening concept, and they can actually make the community feel powerless and less resilient. So we need to follow very clear media ethics when presenting, and we need to have a vision as media professionals to analyze the consequences of such reporting. So the focus should be more on positive stories by getting the rich narratives about how they really actually got better, and what is the perception that the society is having, and how they could actually break down that. And I just wanted to give an example of this particular organization called MARA. It's a media and arts collective based in Bangalore, which is working in collaboration with UNESCO. So actually it's an 8-month-old project, very interesting. They're working closely with 12 community radio stations across 10 Indian states and in 5 different languages. The focus is on building mechanisms to ensure support and accountability from local authorities, a network of local reporters from active listeners, addressing issues of gender violence, emotional and psychological counseling during COVID-19, and countering misinformation. So this is very important as media, like this kind of collaborations and this kind of campaigns can be actually very productive when you are partnering with some key agencies or with some institutes, and actually bring out such, very actively get involved at the community level. So why are voices from the community so important to build resilience? One is we need to build the empathy, reduce the perceived difference that are reverberating everywhere, and the community voices can actually play a key role as their frontline in facing the impact. So how to include communities as partners in building resilience? That it is very important that we look into who is being stigmatized or facing distress. How, why, how is your content going to help the larger community? And the style, tone and format that you employ, well actually you're talking to someone who is actually, you're calling someone for a TV channel, you're calling someone who has been affected. How you help your audience see the person is very important by modeling yourself with respect, kindness and compassion, and emotionally engage with a person as it can drive away the attitude and false perceptions that are holding the community. And remember that you have a duty to protect the integrity and dignity of the person that you feature in your news. And make it a very sustainable project over a period of time and not a one-shot program or article. And effective media communication is in fact a very crucial element in effective emergency management and should assume a central role from the start. It establishes public confidence in the ability of an organization or government to deal with an emergency and to bring about a satisfactory conclusion. And in conclusion, effective media communication is also integral to the larger process of information exchange aimed at eliciting trust and promoting understanding of the relevant issues or actions in the community, and helps it make resilient. And the media can play a very important role in the reconstruction and strengthening of the social context when having a disaster. Addressing disasters frequently and ignoring the normal flow of life that can exist after the incident is one of the stereotype mistakes that are usually made by the media, and these can be minimized. And the most important activity of the media are implemented through development of awareness, creation of support networks and attracting public participation to create or strengthen community resilience. Thank you.